Welcome to Conversations with Deborah, a bi-coastal dialogue. I always say bilingual. I don't know because sometimes I think we're speaking a different language, at least when it comes to politics.
Well, sometimes we do, but that's what makes life interesting, isn't it? So
Well,
nice to see you, Malcolm.
the same here. But that's we probably quoted the quote from Winston Churchill. And he
Yes.
was saying England and America are two countries separated by a common language.
I like it. Always like Winston Churchill. And
Anyway,
once again, that brings up the whole idea. Why did President Biden eliminate Winston Churchill's bust in the Oval Office? Why would he do something like that?
I haven't heard it, so I can't.
I gotta tell you.
I can't talk about that because I haven't heard that he did it, and I haven't heard why. Did they
I
give
don't know
you?
why either.
Did they give you a reason?
No,
Oh,
I think he replaced it with a bus of Cesar Chavez and a couple of other folks. And I know that Cesar Chavez he's very controversial, of course, but I remember that my mother was very pro Cesar Chavez, and of course people were accusing him of being a communist and all of this. But my mother would sit down with me. She was just a wise person. Would sit down with me and talk about the situation with farm workers and the labors that they would go through and that they needed to be treated humanly.
right.
And
Yeah. Why
it's
was Cesar
remarkable
Chavez?
for
Why
me.
was Cesar Chavez controversial?
Supposedly because he was a communist and everybody says he's a communist and blah, 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 and all of that. But I think treating people fairly is kind of a nice, a universal situation that needs to be taken care of. I think treating people nicely. So at any
Well,
rate.
I think people bandy words around because I don't really think people know what a communist is. I think too many people equate communism with dictatorship.
Well,
And
it is, but it's communism is the ownership of private property by the government
no, 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 no,
and for the common good.
no, no. It's ownership of private property for the masses. It's not.
Yes.
It's not owned by the government. There's no government. The last
Well,
stage.
but the government basically lords over the masses.
No,
And
no, no. The last stage of communism, if you read the Communist Manifesto, which started the whole damn thing,
I missed it.
is
Movie? Is there a Communist Manifesto movie?
uh,
Maybe
the,
Hollywood's on its way to do that, aren't they?
maybe we'll do it, but it's a withering away of the government. There's no government.
Yes.
Everything is controlled by the people, with everybody having
Well, then how do you
an equal
explain
part.
how do you explain the Communist Party in China?
Because it
Withering away of government.
because there's no true communism. They're all dictatorships. And the Chinese, what's happening? They are politically communist, but economically they're capitalists.
Well, they at this point right now have surpassed for the first time in our history the manufacturing power, the ability to bring in foreign investment. They are far more popular now than is the United States. China has an avowed goal of being able to be superior to the United States. And frankly, I would prefer us being superior because I do find that our form of government seems to be far more giving and far more understanding than are the communist China.
Well, not that I'm for communist China. Again, I don't like the way they treat people and their humanistic, goals. But the thing
Thank God.
isn't that our goal to be number one? To be number
Well,
one?
no, of course, but I have to trust our form of government far over than I do the communist Chinese. I am surprised because we are in the midst of World War III with the situation with the COVID virus. And you cannot tell me that this was naturally formed. The mutants that's taking place and what have you. It's something from science fiction, for crying out loud.
Well, the mutants I don't think has anything to do with China, but because from what I understand, whenever there's a virus, it mutates.
Of course.
Science.
This is a different brand of mutating. And the other thing that does concern me a bit is that now we have the professed, what is it, strategic gentleness or something? That's going to be the policy of the Biden administration on China. I'm just, I don't know. One other thing, let's get this out of the way. The
Okay.
situation of impeachment, okay? What in the world, how in the world can you unify the United States when you're going ahead, and I feel the same way about my nose, and impeaching what essentially now is a private citizen? I don't understand. This thing is going to boomerang completely on the Democrats. It truly is. And there's no reason for it. Why in the world doesn't President Biden say, listen, let's go on from here. Let's unify as all Americans and go on with life? I don't get it. And I mean, that march, again, the second march through the Capitol hallways, carrying the impeachment proceedings to the Senate. Oh, please.
Well,
Showmanship.
well, what they did is they took a page out of Donald Trump's showmanship, because he did that constantly. I mean, he was a master of that. He was a master of the media. I mean, that I give him credit for.
Let's just drop the whole situation. We need to start to come together. It is absolute craziness. And I have to say, the other thing we talked about earlier, because we do talk about the show prior in terms of talking, I'll be doggone it. Where in the heck are the indictments with those Capitol invaders that took over on January the 6th? These people need to be in jail. They need to be answered.
I totally agree.
They did. Where are they? This is nuts. And
Well,
the FBI now focusing on domestic terrorists? What? I think they've found their domestic terrorists. A lot of them invaded the Capitol building. So on the rest of us is crazy.
Well, first of all, there's no law against domestic terrorism. It's not a charge. I guess what they do could be charged. But it was Christopher Wray said that, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 months ago, I lose time, that we don't have to worry about outside terrorism from foreign countries. The thing that we have to do is white nationalists.
You know what? That is a cop-out. That is a cop-out.
That was Christopher Wray. But the question is, as far as I know, they're being investigated and they are being charged. They may not be.
I read something, and I can't confirm it, so I'm not going to talk about it necessarily, but I heard that the Justice Department said supposedly there are too many people, so we're going to drop charges. I don't want charges dropped against them.
That I hadn't heard. But
no, I haven't confirmed it, but I'll let you know.
Okay, but the last thing that I'll say on this issue, it's Donald Trump committed the crime when he was in office, and I believe it was definitely a crime. I mean, I heard, number one, for months before that, he was saying how illegitimate the election was, how it's being stolen from him. As a matter of fact, he said even before the election, if he loses, it's because it was stolen from him. And then he, for weeks before that, he said, people come, march on Washington, which they had a perfect right to do. But then he said, go to the Senate, go to the Capitol, march on they were there, they were in a frenzy. He said, march to the Capitol and don't let them, put the ballot and put the, vote. He was telling them to break up the election.
And once again, you and I disagree on this because there is what's called personal responsibility. No, listen, Malcolm. If you told me to go out and shoot somebody, are you responsible for that? No, I'm responsible for that.
No, I'm responsible if there's a group of people that I had gathered, it could be thousands of people, and it's called incitement, and I incite them to riot. They are personally responsible also, but I, as a leader, am also guilty of inciting them to do the riot or sedition.
So you would not impeach a person who's already left office. You would then file civil charges against that.
I would.
You can't impeach somebody who's a private citizen.
Obviously, you can, because he did it when he was a president, which is interesting. Which I was watching. They were doing the impeachment thing today, where they did it a formal with the Senate. They did a formal indictment with the Senate. They said, well, if you couldn't impeach someone who wasn't president, if somebody knows that he would be impeached, he would resign before they could impeach him, and then he'd be a private citizen. Anyway, let's forget about this. I don't know if we can.
All I'm saying is, when you talk about unifying America, this is not unifying. An impeachment of a past president, especially one as popular as this past president, is going to galvanize Trump supporters, and it's not going to be unifying in any way, shape, or form. And I just think that it's foolishness. And it is not only foolish, but it is basically incitement with Trump supporters. And you've got to understand human nature. I got to tell you, the last week to 2 weeks, I very much thought about not going on the program, because I know at this point right now, there's been a call for anybody and everybody who has voted for Trump to be deprogrammed and to have re-education and all of this. Now, I know these are supposedly Democrats that are far, far left, but I just do not need to see history repeating itself. If in fact, back in the 1930s, and that's nuts.
There are always going to be people that are extremists.
Then why don't you have President Biden saying, stop it? Just stop it. It's a very simple phrase. Stop it. We need to go on. And for the Senate to be spending time and money, these people are getting paid full boat salaries, what, $175,000 a year?
Yeah, I think they're paying that.
All of us are waiting. They're going to put this stimulus check situation all the way until the 1st of March. They're not opening up businesses, especially.
No, well, as you know,
what the heck are they doing?
Well, when they were when the different senators were talking on the air last week, they said, "Well, we could do both."
Yeah, right.
It's like, can you walk and chew gum at the same time?
Right, and you know, doggone well, they're not. They're getting full salary, and we've got millions and millions who are out of work, small businesses that are out of work, and we're all waiting for the government to help us out. In the meantime, they're doing this political partying with impeachment. Get on business.
Well, one day we'll talk about the Senate, how much do they get paid, their perks, and how much they anyway. What else is new?
Oh, well, I thought that we should probably start to change things a little bit, because things being done, I mean, once again, you asked me a very interesting question. You said that you asked whether I was a conservative, a Republican, all of those various types of things. I suppose that I am conservative. I'm an independent because I think that you need to look at all sides of things. You need to look at a solution and not just sit on your butt and expect to be taken care of. I mean, when we left California 5.5 years ago, we realized that the economic situation had gotten to be quite tragic for the middle class. There was no way we could continue to stay in a duplex, 700 square feet, and pay $2,300 a month. We were being told that we would probably have a rate increase from our landlords, and bless the landlords, of up to $2,800. So once again, it's called personal responsibility. I mean, I was hysterical when I had to leave my native state. I've been there obviously for more than a day and a half. I was born there in Los Angeles, but I had to make a personal decision to go ahead and move. And we moved in a 16-foot Penske truck, all of our belongings in there, with 2 cats in the front vehicle, which was a Honda Element. And we moved 2,400 miles to a house that we'd never seen except on Zillow, into a place that we'd never been. However, we'd done our homework. And thank heavens that we're living in America, because very, very few places in the world could we have done something like that, to have reestablished ourselves here, which we have. But we had personal responsibility. And that is the beauty of America. You need to have that, because you're able to stand on your own 2 feet. We're able to make a life here, which we have. We've been here now for 5.5 years, and thank the Lord, we're able to be independent, and we're having a hell of a good time. I got to tell you that, Malcolm, we really are.
Well, I'll tell you, one day, what I'd like for you to do is we'll start the show and we'll do the Zoom on your cell phone.
Okay.
And then we'll take a walk around your house, around the outside of the house, and we'll have to figure out a way of doing that. We'll experiment. I'm not at this point. I'm not sure how we'll do it, but I'd like to see where you live.
It's very interesting. We chose a place that had history. It's a 1948 bungalow home, and it's been very well taken care of. I thank each evening the prior owners because they did a lot to make sure this house stayed as charming as it is. It's only about 1,300 square feet on the top. They added a sunroom and they added what was called a Florida room, which we turned into basically, sorry, a cat patio. So the cats can go out.
Would this be called a cat house?
It is a cat house. It's a cat patio. Two of whom are sitting right here. Gracie's asleep, and oh, look like Maxie. He's the youngest one. He's also asleep too.
Well, I'm not sure if you know the expression cat house and what it means.
Go ahead, tell me.
A cat house is another word for a bordello.
Of course.
Oh, okay. I didn't know whether it went above your head or not. You know,
no.
Being a prim and proper woman, and
well, you know, what can I tell you, prim and proper. But at any rate, we just got done, and it was funny because we have not been together for the last week, maybe week to 10 days. Part of the reason is because we had to make a really tough decision about the house, and we're surrounded by 150-foot oaks. Probably these oaks have been here for 100 years. And unfortunately, because people don't seem to prune and trees, what have you, we had one particular oak that was in the very back that was leaning. Now, we had spent a lot of money to get it pruned, and we had the tree people put airplane wire to try and keep both branches from falling on the house. But it came to a point where it was obvious that this 150-foot tall oak was leaning dangerously towards the house. And if in fact it had fallen, we would literally it would have taken out half of the house.
it had to
Here
go.
in Carolina, it's totally different than California. In California, I kind of always followed the weather, but you know, in California, you know, it's either like a little bit of rain if you're lucky and mostly sunshine, but there's not a whole lot of weather. And here in South Carolina, there's weather. I mean, there's real weather. And we have straight line winds that come in, and they're off the mountains. And these straight line winds can reach hurricane force. And we watched one straight line wind come through a place called Augusta Road, which is the hoity-toity part of Greenville. And it took apart trees that were probably 200 feet tall, honest to goodness. And the root ball on this tree, I stood next to it. Now I'm 6 feet tall, and it towered over me. The entire root ball must have been 10 feet wide. And the straight line winds came in and literally tore apart this tree, along with 100, probably 200 additional trees as it hit this area in Greenville. So we couldn't take the chance. So we had to spend the money to take out these trees. And I don't know. I get the Californian in me, Malcolm. I don't want to kill a tree, but I had to. And we replanted a whole series of 4 or 5 trees. For every tree we took out, because we had to take out 3 of them, we planted 4 or 5 additional trees. But it was really something. They had to bring in a crane, and the crane probably went up about 200 feet. It was a major operation. All of the neighbors came out and put their lawn chairs out when they were watching. So I'm distributing coffee and hot chocolate.
Vert sandwiches and a glass of wine. Well, I don't know
As we're
about
watching
Greenville.
these trees. It was something.
In Santa Barbara, they would have brie cheese or a can of beer and white wine.
Well, here we have pimento cheese instead of brie cheese. Brie. We do have a here.
But you know what I wanted to bring up, which is funny, because you said you had an old house. It was 1949. And in the US, in America, houses like that are antiques almost, you know, because we're building so much. I remember the first time, and again, I'm from New York, so sometimes the architecture is can get a little older, like the mid 1800s, which is considered
Sure.
antique. So they're houses and stores. And when I came out here, if a store was open in 1955, it was a traditional. I remember going to England, first time I was in England or in Europe. There are places that, and over here, this walk in the year 500 AD or
Yeah.
BC.
Yeah,
I mean, these were old. And
I
then when
know.
I came back to to the US, to New York, and I said 1800, that's relatively new. And you're talking about an old house, 1949.
I know. But it's interesting here in South Carolina because, of course, this was the first state that separated from the Union. And it was interesting. We were almost getting a chance to go down today. In fact, we almost had to cancel today. We're going to go down to Charleston, and that's where Fort Sumter is. The history that's here is fascinating. It's so different than in California, because in California we have the mission system, we have the impact of Hispanics and Junipero Serra and all of the Tuscans and what have you. Back here, we have mostly bungalow types of buildings here. And then we also have a tremendous amount of history, not only with the Civil War, but with the Revolutionary War, in which South Carolina was absolutely pivotal in the winning of the Revolutionary War. We went up to something called Black's Mountain, maybe 45 minutes north of us. And we went up about the same time as the battle took place. And it was a battle involving the British, who were sitting on top of Kings Mountain. And Kings Mountain is pretty tall. It's a couple of, probably 2,000 feet or so. And we decided to walk up, because it's a national park now. And we decided to walk up that same walk. Well, there was about 1,000 of the South Carolinians and Tennessee revolutionaries that had to take that mountain. And of course, the Brits were very full of themselves and said, no, there's no way they can take it. Well, doggone it, they did. And Malcolm, they went straight up that mountain. And I mean, it nearly killed us because we were walking around, the little circle that they had. We finally got up to the top. But you have kind of a different feel here of American history and what it took and the bravery and what people had to go through. The weather here, like I said, is really something different than anything in California. California is beautiful and it's sunny and all that. Here, it's different, and it's more challenging in a certain kind of a way. But it's been interesting being able to go to the various historic sites. We're going to be going down to Savannah. Any luck if COVID would, let us go. Well, go down to see Savannah. But the East Coast is very interesting, and I feel very much at home now here. I truly do.
Well, what I appreciate about California is probably any place that you move, you can say the same thing, but the typography.
Yes.
I mean, when I take when someone comes in from New York or a visitor, I don't really show them the restaurants or the movies or whatever. It's because everybody has something like that. But it's where you could drive from Santa Barbara down the coast to Malibu, into Venice, which I love, because Venice is like an old hippie town. It reminds me a lot of the East Village. But then you can go up to the mountains.
Yes.
And what I love taking people is a ride over Mulholland Drive.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you can go from Mulholland Drive, from Hollywood down to almost Santa Barbara. I mean,
absolutely.
It goes straight through, and you can see both sides. And both sides, you can see the ocean side, and you can see the valley side.
Yes.
And there's certain areas I know where I used to go through in Calabasas.
Calabasas, yes.
Over I'm forgetting the name of the road. But you go from the woods, and there's certain areas there that it's the old time hippies.
Yeah.
And they still haven't. But in every area, they have certain things that are endearing to it.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful country. It's an absolutely wonderful country, and we're very lucky to be living here.
Yeah.
I've traveled the world as you've traveled the world, and I've enjoyed, and not just 2 weeks, but sorry, the ring is, we have a security system here and blah blah blah. That's the ring you hear.
Mm.
But I've traveled the world, and I've spent more than 2 weeks. I've spent several months and what have you in places like Hong Kong and Switzerland and a whole variety of different places should probably remain nameless at any rate. But I must say that when I get back on the plane and I land here in America, there is a certain real sense of relief as I touch down. It's a marvelous country. We have our faults, but I got to tell you, across the board, we've always tried to do better. And I think that's what I'd like to be able to see with this new administration. I really would like to see us all try and do better and to be more tolerant of one another. And it's funny because I decided to take this is something we had. What do people have on their refrigerators? We
I,
have
I,
these things here.
I have magnets.
Well, I do too, and I have my recipes and what have you.
Of places we traveled, and then my son does that. My sons do that, where they don't buy us any presents. Like, they bring back magnets.
There you go. But it was interesting. This is from Jackson, H. Jackson Brown Jr. It's talking about 21 suggestions for success. Number one, which I think is interesting, and you and I did the right thing, marry the right person. This one decision will determine 90% of your happiness or your misery. I can agree with that. But the other thing that I see is, for example, it says here, give people more than they expect and do it cheerfully. I think that's important. I think it's also important to be generous. It says here, number 7, have a grateful heart. Number 8, persistence. Number 14, be loyal. 15, be honest, be self-reliant and be a self-starter. Be bold and courageous. When you look back on your life, take care of those that you love, and don't do anything that wouldn't make your mom proud. I think, just those are things that we keep in our refrigerator. And I think it's things to remember.
Yeah, well, the thing that I remember, which it didn't say that, but don't let other people dictate how you treat them. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, if someone says that people react differently, they'll say, you'll see them one day and, they had a bad day, so they'll be nasty.
Sure.
But you can't let that dictate how you'll treat them.
I agree.
If you're a kind person and a nice person, treat them the same way.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I hope with this new administration that we're able to get beyond all of this. When you ask me if I am a conservative, politically, I suppose that I am, but I do believe I'm an American, and Americans, we look at different options and different solutions to come up with a new path, a new way of doing things. And we need to remember our past, but we also need to remember some of the fallacies of the past and change those things. And I just hope that we're going to be able to do that, because we're a marvelous country and a marvelous people. But we got to be careful. We can't be giving away our liberties and our own freedoms at this point.
Well, the thing is, America, unlike most of the countries in Europe, is so vast, and we have so many different people, different ethnic groups, different religious groups, totally different, and and it's so hard to govern like that. A big thing, I consider myself more of an internationalist. I think there's no way that we could be Americans, we could be Russians. We have to keep our identity, but we have to learn how to mingle. We have to learn how to be with each other and live in the same world. We have one world, we live in one planet, which is small. I mean, you say now, you were talking about whether it be the flu, whether it be a Chinese flu. 100 years ago, we'd never see it. Well, actually we did, but it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't, I remember well. It wouldn't be a pandemic because people wouldn't be traveling. And there's certain things that, the tsetse fly out of, Africa. It could never come here because it wouldn't come on the plane. The big thing was ship. So you have to learn how to get along with people.
But it doesn't mean that we become exactly all alike. I think what really blends us all together is the whole idea when you take, for example, citizenship with America. if you are a foreigner, that you drop allegiance to all but that of America.
Right.
And we need to keep that idea of America very, very strong, because as we blend, and I understand globalism and all of that, of course you've got to get along, but it's like having two people. You've got to have differences of opinions to be able to get to a better place. You've got to have different viewpoints to get to a better place. And I just, my worry is that I don't want us to give up to the Chinas of the world, the North Koreas, the Russias of the world, that really don't give a damn about people. America cares about people, and we've got to show that, even if they're Trump's.
Are you talking about America, or are you talking about Americans?
I'm talking about America need to treat Americans very, very well. And if we've had some problems, which we do have some problems, that we need to solve those problems and not simply give up.
Well, I'll leave you with this, because actually our time ran out.
I heard.
What is an American?
What is an
what is an American? Is there an American personality? If
Absolutely.
If my parents came from Europe, Eastern Europe,
Absolutely.
and I was born here, am I an American?
Absolutely. But the American vision is that of self-reliance, of helping one another, of uniting shoulder to shoulder to do right, to make sure that the individual is as important, if more, far more important than the state is important. The state is not important. The individual is most important, and we have a common goal.
But as you know, I'm Jewish. I was born in New York, and I'm not religious. But if you follow the Ten Commandments, or parts of Judaism, which I like, is if you live in a village and someone comes into the village and they're alone, you invite them into your house for dinner.
Absolutely.
And even if you don't have the food to, enough things to share, you share and share alike, because it's going back to, like when Jesus, said, if everybody behaved like that without necessarily being religious, it would be a far better world. Under that note, my dear, we'll see you next week, and I want to talk to you about doing things with Fish. We're talking about doing a new show without Deborah.
Fish is my husband. His name is Fish because he's an artist known as Fish Fisher.
A very talented artist. And we talked, and just before the show, he was there, and we were talking about some of his creations. And I'm thinking of maybe doing a separate show with Fish, and I look forward to it. Anyway, you have a great week.
I will.
And I speak. Okay, and remember, keep Tuesday open.
Okie dokie.
Because we tape this, or I don't know, you don't call it tape. We Zoom this every Tuesday about 12 o'clock my time and 3 o'clock. But we want people that they could see a new show every week.
And they will.
Okay. Be good.
All righty.
Be safe. Bye-bye.
Be safe. Bye-bye now.